We have 4 practices in, obviously the first 2 in helmets and the last 2 in pads. Really working hard on fundamentals and technique and physicality, and pleased with the contact speed so far. Really worked a lot on third down Saturday and yesterday, high red zone yesterday. We'll practice Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday this week, and really go back and we'll work on the low red zone, short yardage goal line, 1 minute coming out, introducing a lot of situations. We talked to our team about being a better situational football team, understanding the game changing in those situations, and we'll have some sort of scrimmage Saturday, depending on the depth up front, especially where we are. Injury-wise, Alex Anzalone had surgery on his shoulder yesterday. He will be out for spring. He will be back for fall camp. It's usually about a 4-month situation there, so he'll be cleared for fall camp. John Bullard tweaked his hamstring. He'll probably be out till next Monday. And Cody Riggs tweaked his hamstring yesterday, and he's day-to-day. So that's kind of really the only injury situations we have at this point. John Halapio got in a little yesterday in some individual and got some work done. He's not ready for full 11 work at this point, but he looked good yesterday. Quintez Williams has made the move to tackle. Didn't rep as much early as he did yesterday, and got in there and did some things for us. So trying to continue to build depth on the line of scrimmage, obviously with Chaz and Ian missing spring. So that's kind of where we are. For 4 days in, we're not ready to make any proclamations.
What did Anzalone do with his shoulder?
It's a labrum, right shoulder, I believe. Yep, right shoulder. But it's a freak deal. It was in a tackling drill and just got hit on it the wrong way. Disappointed for him, and but he's going to be a really good player. So we're going to be fine.
You said Purefoy was going to practice at receiver for 7
Mm-hmm.
practices, so that would be through Saturday.
Yep.
So how's that gone so far?
I think very well. I mean, again, really, Jason, we're trying to introduce concepts to him. Okay, so whether it's playing it outside, he's played some in the slot, to be able to expand his role mid-season. So instead of just sitting him over and saying, okay, you got these 3 plays when you're in the game, because once you run those 3 plays in the first quarter, they're kind of on to what's going on. We want to be able to expand what he can do at receiver, and I don't think it's diminishing his skill at all as a corner. I mean, so we've worked in the offseason all the way through with him at being a cornerback and working on the techniques and fundamentals. He's done nothing with the defense so far. All he's worked on is special teams and receiver. And after the 7th practice, he's going to come back to defense, and we will decide then how much we will expand his role offensively throughout the rest of spring. He's going to have a role on our offense in the fall. That's why I wanted to do this right now.
Any chance he would extend that beyond Saturday, or is that definitely?
Well, he still is going to have a role offensively, but he needs to get back and rep some on defense as well.
Is there any scenario in which, like, the stars align on defense and he's not needed and he becomes full-time offense?
No.
How much better do you feel about DJ Humphries, Max Garcia?
Well, DJ's weight's up. He's over 280 now, and that was always an issue when we played the bigger teams. To be able to set and hold the edge and get some movement in the run game. I think Max Garcia has been a really good addition. He's a tough, physical inside player. He's done, a great kid. Does everything you ask. I think we're really, he's a guy that I'm excited about. I think both of those guys are really good additions. Tyler Moore's done some nice things. Tyler's very intelligent. He can play multiple positions, but he's looked good at the right tackle. Just kind of, learning new terminology. He's been out a year. I mean, all of the things that go into it, I'm very pleased.
The left side, is it, without disparaging, last year, is it a bit of an upgrade? You feel like you're better?
Well, we'll wait till we get in the season to make those judgments, but I'm excited about both players.
Do you have anyone else working or repping at center besides John?
Yeah, Cal Koenig. Yep. Not right now. Trip Thurman would be our third center if we had to, have a third center right now. But both of those guys have played in games and have played well, and obviously John's a guy we got a lot of confidence in.
What is it about DJ that when you saw him last year that you kind of know, okay, we got a guy that we can?
Well, he's extremely intelligent, first of all, and extremely confident. But he's just a really good athlete. He can bend his lower body. He can set the edge against a speed rush. Sometimes at times he had a hard time anchoring against the bigger players in some of the bull rushes. But he's a guy now that's building that anchor. He's building that core. Works extremely hard. Football is important to DJ. He works hard at football. And that's where I think, again, once you get the ingredients of, number one, God's blessed him with a lot of ability, size, strength, all the things, the skill set you're looking for, and then he's got the heart and desire to want to be a good football player, and that's what he has.
How's Calvin Tower look?
Kelvin's done some nice things. Again, like all of the freshmen, is swimming right now as far as assignments are concerned and things. But again, made some really nice cuts in the run game. I'm very pleased with his progress.
It's just how's his raw ability to.
He's got, yeah. I mean, again, he's at Florida, so we're excited about him being here. He's a guy that can stick his foot in the ground. He can get north-south. He's got some physicality. Again, the game's got to slow down for him a little bit right now. There's a lot going on. And in the individual drills, when he doesn't have as much thinking to do, you can see the athleticism.
Gideon flashed some potential on Saturday. How's that back up?
He's been again, he's done some nice things. We did a half-line run drill yesterday. I was real pleased with seeing some of the things he did and getting a hat on the linebacker and getting some movement. So I'm very pleased with his production so far.
You said the freshmen are swimming a little bit. I saw DJ taking some extra time, with some of the younger guys. Just overall, I mean, how quickly are they picking things up maybe compared to freshmen in years past, especially because they're early in the release, they're here to do that?
Well, I mean, again, you got to be realistic, where these guys are. They should be high school seniors right now. So that's what I always try to keep in mind as we move forward. But you continue to install, you continue to push forward, because they need to understand that there's a certain learning curve that they've got to go with. And they've never been asked to do this before as far as, playing the game at a faster pace, playing the game at a faster tempo, but also learning the game at a faster pace and a faster tempo. And that's what's been really different for all of them. But I'm very pleased with all 8 guys. I mean, Matt's not repping obviously with the knee, but very pleased with their progress and where they are.
Go back to Purefoy. The more you expand on offense, do you take him off special teams?
No.
So he's going to be.
He needs to be in really, really good shape.
How many plays could that be?
I don't know. I don't want to start putting numbers of plays on things right now. Here we are in March, and we're he's still learning the offense and alignments and certain techniques and things that I think he needed to learn for the position. So we're just going to continue to move forward, and I think a lot will depend on how our receiving core continues to develop with those guys. So we'll see how that goes.
Sorry, why don't we see as many two-way players as maybe we did a decade ago?
I think the game has become a little bit more complex, and I think there's a lot more to learn on both sides of the ball, and so I think that to me would be the biggest reason why, that there's too many things. When I was at LSU, Michael Clayton was a third down safety for us, was our best special teams player, was a gunner, he was the R4 on kickoff. You don't see many receivers doing that. He was a returner, but he was a third down safety. But he also had great mental capacity to learn, and he was obviously our best wideout. So I'm just trying to go through my Rolodex here of just players that I've been around that have played both ways. Other than just situational short yardage stuff, that hasn't been many that I've been around. But I think as much as anything, the way I would attribute that to is the complexity of systems and being able to learn and spend enough time and have a player that's patient enough to go through some learning planes, which that's what Luchez is going through a little of that right now. But again, been very pleased with his progress.
Will, even though Angelo and Roland can't play right now, how important is it that they're here?
Oh, they're in the meetings. They're here. They see the tempo. They're hearing the terminology. They're watching the film. They're getting coached. And mental repetition is something I talk about all the time. You can get mental reps when you're standing on the side. So they're watching the film. They're in the meeting rooms. They're seeing the walkthroughs take place. But more than anything, to me, Robbie, they see the tempo. And that's you can talk to them all about it before they get here, until they get here and they realize how quickly they've got to think and react and engage and continue to install and see the volume of things that happen. It's very difficult unless they've truly been through it.
I think you can't talk about recruits until they've signed.
Mm-hmm.
When you look back at Florida's history, a lot of the quarterbacks that have won SEC titles here have won championships in high school. How much of a correlation is there in your mind there, and is that something you guys look at in the recruiting process?
That certainly is something we look at in the recruiting process, not just for quarterbacks, but all players. You want players that understand what it takes to be successful, that have been part of winning programs. It's not the answer all. Obviously, it takes other good players for that to happen, but I think that's very critical, no question.
What areas Jeff made the most strides in? Did you see in the first
To me, just the mental edge of the game and understanding where he's protected, where he's got to get rid of it. Understanding a little bit more about the route concepts that we're repping through, and knowing where to take the football. And, the mental and quickness is faster. The process is faster to be able to see it and get rid of the football. But more than anything, understanding where you're protected and where you're not. And that to me is critical. There were some times last year that, from a simple standpoint of first year in the system, first year quarterback, the safety spins down. Obviously, the pressure's coming from this side. Well, now we've got to process where are we taking the football? Can we redirect the protection? All of those things that are real easy for you and I to sit here and talk about, and very, very easy for someone to be critical about, but a little different when you're standing back there pulling the pin.
What did you say from Darius?
Darius Cummins, very pleased. He can anchor. He's got good short area quickness. He can get off blocks. He can disengage. He's got good strength. Just really pleased.
How much of a guy playing both ways is the fact that there might be a need on another position? Like if you guys were really stocked at receiver, would we even see Muschamp out there? You know what I'm talking about?
I certainly think it's because of need.
In every case, generally, or just?
I can only speak for ours, but I would say yes.
Seems like a lot of times you'll hear, just in general, you'll hear about a receiver who looks great in the spring and then it doesn't necessarily translate to the fall. Is there a reason at that position why that tends to happen?
I don't know.
Can you evaluate kind of what you've seen out of the receivers so far?
Well, Andre's done some nice things. Just got to continue. His biggest battle is consistency, doing it all the time. Quentin, I thought improved throughout the year tremendously. I thought he did a nice job. I think he's done some nice things for us. LaTroy's shown up and done some nice things for us. Raphael needs to come on. He was with baseball a lot, so I think mentally, obviously, that puts him behind a little bit on some things we've tweaked within what we're trying to do. But he needs to pick up his mental intensity and continue to perform and produce better. Luchez I've been pleased with. His guy athleticism-wise, again, just very green at the position as far as learning and capacity of experiencing it before. A lot of this is happening for the first time for him. And then Solomon Patton has been in non-contact and has done some nice things. But and that's probably the group right there.
How do you think your receivers are responding to Coach Phillips?
Excuse me?
How do you think your receivers are responding to Joe Phillips?
Well, good, very well. I think Joker's a very experienced coach. He's played the position. He's coached the position for a long time. He's been a coordinator. He sees the big picture. So I think that they're certainly soaking in his knowledge right now.
On that note, with DJ Durkin, what are you seeing? He seems to be very obviously hands-on, vocal guy. What you're seeing from him?
Yeah, well, DJ understands our system, and he understands how we need to implement our system, and he got a vast knowledge of defensive football, and adds some good things that we've tweaked within our system. But philosophically, being on the same page with the head coach is important.
Can you give us some examples of some mistakes or problems or issues that you wouldn't expect to see in the second year in the offensive system that maybe you did see last year?
Well, obviously we had some procedural issues that we are a motion and shift team. We do no huddle at times to change the tempo of the game, but obviously we need to clean up some procedural issues, false starts and things like that. You hope to rectify those issues as you move forward as much as you can. But a lot of the negative plays, whether it was from miscommunication, lack of experience or whatever you want to call it, but we had a lot of negative plays. Those would be the two that would jump out at you. We need to obviously be better in the red zone as far as scoring touchdowns. You need to be at 70% as opposed to 50%. You need to get points, number one, but you look at some of the games you could have changed drastically with scoring touchdowns. You look at South Carolina game. You score touchdowns down there early in the game, you create yourself a pretty sizable difference in the game. So, but those are the things that would jump out at me.
You mentioned, change protection, recognizing the safety where you need to go with the ball. Is that stuff that you wouldn't expect Jeff to make, maybe a third of the time this time as opposed to as much as he struggled with it last year? Maybe?
I wouldn't want to put a percentage on it, but obviously, year two in the system I think helps. Not just for Jeff. Again, we want to hang it on one guy or we want to hang it on one unit. We need to play better around Jeff too. So it wasn't all just one guy's fault at times in the throwing game. We need to get better at receiver, and we need to improve in protection. We had our backs didn't protect as well as maybe we thought, at times. It wasn't always on the offensive line. Sometimes we held the ball too long. So all of those things are being addressed.
Sturgis.
Couple final questions, guys?
Sturgis is pretty imperative with the team.
Yeah.
How's what's your evaluation?
We need to get better. Both of them need to kick a lot better.
It sounds like Rex was having a pretty good weekend for an injury.
Mm-hmm.
We were with basketball, but was it kind of bummer to see the guy injured?
Well, I think he's day to day. I don't think he's out. I mean, I think he's day to day. It just tweaked it, and we were in a red zone drill, and he was no, actually we were in a special teams drill, and he pulled it, tweaked it. But I think he's day to day. I think he'll be back. You know, Cody's a guy that can give you a lot of positions. You know, he can play safety, he can play nickel, he can play corner, and obviously he's a really good special teams player for us.
And Antonio Morrison's transition?
Mm-hmm. Very, very pleased. Antonio's a very passionate guy, plays the game hard, plays with great physicality, you know, continues to improve as a communicator within the front seven, and that's going to be a key deal for him, is handling a lot of the directing traffic. He had John and Jelani helping him last year, and now he's got to be that guy. And we put a lot on our linebackers as far as communication is concerned. But, you know, again, very pleased, very instinctive, tough player. Has certainly improved his short area quickness. He's much stronger than he was a year ago, and you know, so he's obviously a guy that truly benefited from being here mid-year and took advantage of it. You know, he was here last spring, so here's a guy that really took all the reps and took advantage of all those situations that he's been in.
Final question, Mark.
Will, as a former DB and a guy who works with safeties, any thoughts on the NCAA, the new rule regarding defenseless players, I guess it is?
Right, targeting.
Contact above the shoulders, yeah, ejection, all that stuff.
You know, first of all, I'm all for player safety, so that's first and foremost. But you know, I think our officials have a very difficult job. I think they've added another wrinkle to their game day operation. You know, I think the NFL does it at the highest level, and the way we did it last year, if there was a questionable hit, then Steve Shaw, our head of officials, and Commissioner Slive sat down in a very calm environment on Monday morning, and they reviewed the tape, and they made a decision on whether or not there needed to be a suspension or not. It's the same way the National Football League does it. So now we're going to do it on game day in front of 90,000 people, and yes, I understand we're going to replay, but, you know, again, to me, I think you do what the NFL does, and I like our protocol the way it was before. You know, I didn't see anything wrong with it. The explanation that I got is we needed to make it a more harsh penalty. But, you know, at the end of the day, I liked what we were doing.
In spring practice, are you telling guys to try to avoid those hits altogether?
Well, we don't. I mean, you know, when we're in thud tempos, which basically is we're staying off the ground. You know, we don't ever want to take a shot on one of our guys, you know, going across the middle. And we'll discuss on Saturday, but we have discussed with our players the new rules. You know, understand that the ramifications of being ejected from a game and the next game. You know, depending on the replay. Yeah.
Well, we talk a lot about players being in the second year of the system like that, but flipping it around, how beneficial is it for a coach like Coach Pease or yourself being through it, being in the second year, knowing the personnel as well?
Well, there's so many things. I don't even know where to start. Number one, knowing the personnel, knowing what they can handle, not just physically but mentally. You're teaching, that was so refreshing our first practice. I walked over the offensive field and, you know, they're teaching fundamentals and techniques as opposed to teaching scheme. Now, are we still teaching scheme? Absolutely. We still have some young guys out there learning the scheme and learning what to do? Absolutely. But you're honing in a lot more with this basic fundamentals and technique that you, quite frankly, I mean, it's drinking water out of a fire hose. I mean, you're trying to get so many things done in a very short amount of time, and it's very difficult. And then you get into the fine line of, are you doing enough? Or are you doing too much? Now you got a player thinking instead of reacting on the field. But you get to hone in so much more on the fine-tuned fundamentals and techniques of the position, of the play, of the scheme, as opposed to just teaching scheme. Well, when this happens, that happens. When this happens, that happens. You know, so you're able just to fine-tune things, in my opinion, so much more, as opposed to, you know, just trying to teach the scheme part of it.
Thanks,
What
guys.
about seeing things where you've now seen guys, how they react in front of 90,000 in Baton Rouge? Or
Well, ain't no doubt. I mean, we can all talk about how, you know, you're out there at the practice facility and we've got 200 out there, you know, well, there's going to be 90,000 folks out there in Baton Rouge, so you better get ready to roll. And you never know how a guy's going to react. You think you know, but you really don't until they get out there and they get in that situation and they're put under fire and they got to, you know, they got to make a play.
Thanks, guys.
All righty.
Thanks, Will. Thanks, Will.